Hey, you guys, welcome back. I am your host, Leslie Nunnery, and I am so grateful that you've chosen to join us here today. We have a great show for you lined up. Sherri Seligson is here joining us. She is one of those people that you just like to be around. You're going to so enjoy hearing her story and just hearing from her heart. She always joins us or has joined us many times at Teach Them Diligently, and is always a fan favorite because she is such an encourager, such a great educator. She has written a number of science books. She is a marine biologist, just has the coolest story that I can't wait for you to hear. So stay tuned for that. Now, if you like the type of content that you get through the podcast, you are going to love Teach Them Diligently events because those offer you 2.5 days to deep dive into biblical content that is relevant for your family, will help you do what God has called you to do with excellence, and you'll meet a lot of amazing people along the way. So if you have not yet gotten your ticket, I encourage you to do so now. Go to teachthemdiligently.net/events. You can find an event near you, get your ticket. We have something going on for the entire family. So go check that out. Again, that is teachthemdiligently.net/events. We'll be in Dayton, Ohio, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee, and Branson, Missouri this year, and we would love to see you there. All right, Sherri, welcome to the podcast. I am so glad that you are joining us again today. It's always a joy to talk to you.
It's good to be back, Leslie. I enjoyed talking with you as well.
Well, great, great. Well, tell us, for those who may not have met you, may not have heard you on site, tell us a little bit about who you are and also kind of give an overview of what God has allowed you to do. Because I know I have used your resources, I have grown through things that you have done. I love watching your stuff on social media because I learn through your short form content. Tell us how all of that kind of how God led you and what He put in your hand for those things.
Okay, so first of all, I'm a wife and mom to 4 kids. We homeschooled our kids kindergarten all the way through high school. They're now adults doing all kinds of fun things. Homeschooling works. Let me
It
just
did.
end with that. I'll start with that. But before we had children, I worked as a marine biologist at Walt Disney World's Living Seas at Epcot Center. And my responsibility was care and nutrition for the predators.
Hmm.
And so I published shark behavior research. And then I got pregnant with our first child, and God called me to be home with our children. I really felt like I wanted to be home at that time. So I left my job and my first job for my second job, which I considered a promotion to motherhood.
Hmm.
And there was some challenges, but this is just the nutshell version. We'll talk more about this
Yep.
probably. But and then so we stayed home. I stayed home with my children. Then we had 2 and 3 and 4, and then we felt like God was calling us to homeschool. So we homeschooled our children. And then through that process, of course, I love science. And in the science community, in homeschooling or in the homeschooling community, if you're known as a science person, people just like, will you please teach our kids, teach our
We will
children? And
flock to you.
that's right. So, which was great. And so we had opportunity I did some co-ops, science co-ops, and taught them in our home. Whatever my children were learning, I was like, just come alongside and we'll do it all
That's
together. It
awesome.
was wonderful. We didn't even charge. We just charged for extra lab equipment because I just felt like it was a ministry. I
Hmm.
continued studying and learning more about the ocean, about science in general, chemistry, physics, and continued to see God's handiwork in all of these. So apologetics became a part of my passion to teach why we believe what we believe, and the fact that we can study science and see God's fingerprints, His creative fingerprints, His order. And so using that, now I write curriculum for Apology Educational Ministries. I've written a couple of courses, and I teach in all of their video instruction that goes from middle school to high school. We travel all over the world. My husband is my videographer now, and so we go
Ah,
where science is happening. And so we'll go all over. When we talk about migration, we go to Tanzania in the middle of the Serengeti and watch the migration of the wildebeest. And I
cool.
want children and students to see God's action, science in action, God's world. And so it's interesting though, with all of that. Now I write other books as well, and just seeing how God used all of those things
Hmm.
in that what I thought was a very convoluted pathway to get me to what I do today. It's just amazing. It's nothing that I could have planned, but I see how each step of that journey was intentional and for purpose, for my benefit, for the next assignment He had each step of the way.
Yeah, no question. As you were talking, first of all, I didn't know about the care and nutrition of predators. That even makes you
Yes.
cooler. That's a little part that I had missed that you were dealing with predators all the time. Super cool.
Yes.
Um, so I had to bring attention to that. That's really
Sharks are
awesome.
fascinating. They're one of them. Yes.
They are, I know. But as you were talking, I was thinking even about my own story. You know, both you and I have grown kids now. My baby just turned 18. And so all my kids have been very quick to make sure I know I don't have a child anymore. All of them are legally adults.
Oh.
Um, so we both have all adult children, different stage of life. And we both have a rear view mirror where we can see God lead us. But I talk to so many moms, and I'm confident you do too, that they're looking and they see this stuff in their hand and they just wonder, is the sacrifice to walk away from whatever worth it? How is God going to use, you even mentioned it, this convoluted bunch of stuff for his glory someday? What am I supposed to do in the meantime? How do you talk to moms who are really struggling with questions like that?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I love encouraging moms about that because um, what we see, our perspective of our life looks like a zigzag road. And
Mm,
oftentimes, especially if we're considering what society tells us about motherhood, being a mom is not really appreciated, is not really applauded.
yeah.
It's definitely not glamorous when you think about it. And so our world sees motherhood as being just something secondary. And so, but what do you really do? People ask, what do you really do?
Hmm.
What do you really want to do? And so we have this pressure on us as women to feel like we've got to do more. And I think it's our prime best position, God given position to be a mother, to raise children, their image bearers, and to help them walk in their journey that God has for them. And so, what I saw initially as a plan B, a side route to my real career, this was like a sideline I had to take. And, that brought only resentment if that
Hmm.
happened, if I continued to dwell in that. Like these kids are getting in the way of
Right.
my main, what I could really do for the
Yeah.
world or
My
for God,
dreams, my goals, my,
Yes.
yeah.
But I considered it a promotion, and I had to continue to tell myself that because
Hmm.
it was such a blessing to build those relationships. Now the relationships you have with your adult children
Hmm.
are so tight and so sweet, and it takes time to do that, to be able to
Yeah.
walk life with them. And so we cannot see if God's pulled you into dragging and screaming maybe, or you walked into this time of parenting. See that as the straight line path, God's plan A
Mm,
for your life, and ask him what he's going to do in that season, in that assignment, in you for your next assignment. You are not always going to be changing diapers, right? You're
yeah.
not always going to be training character, which can be exhausting.
Mm,
But it builds in us skills. Each step of my journey, looking back now, I see glimpses of what God did. I
yeah.
obviously cannot see all of it, but I see glimpses even during that um, just persevering time of those hard seasons with children. I learned character. I learned prayer. I learned how to be on my knees before the
Mm,
Lord, saying, I cannot do this on my own, Lord. And He would give me the strength. He would give me the energy. He would give me a word in His Bible that I could read that was encouragement. Everything, both academically, um, hard skills, soft skills, whatever you want to call them, every step was useful. And so, wherever God has you, whether it's a hard season, maybe it's a season of unemployment in your family,
mm,
maybe it's a season of illness, God uses this for his good. We may not see it, we may never see it, but we have to trust that his ways are plan A for us.
yeah.
And we need to ask him, and we need to be looking for, Lord, what are you going to do in this? I don't see anything good out of this,
Yeah.
maybe. What are you going to do in this?
Yeah.
And there's going to be those hard seasons. So that's kind of in a nutshell what I try to talk with parents about, with moms in particular,
Yeah.
because again, career seems to be the thing that makes us feel frustrated. We've got to get some sideline business going.
Right.
Otherwise we have to
Right.
fulfill.
Right.
That's not where it is. I mean, if God's given you something or you need to earn some money, okay, but
Right.
the frustration of our significance coming from that,
Yeah.
that's the hard part that we have to get over.
Yeah, and that's always going to put friction into everything else that you're doing because you're wedging something in that may not belong at that moment, or you're elevating something that does belong, but it belongs at a lower rung on the ladder than you're giving it. So I think a lot of times we inject a lot of friction into our families by these misplaced priorities, or allowing ourselves to think we have a dream that may not really, it's a manufactured thing sometimes, or it's an out of time thing. um,
Yes.
one of the things that I've seen through the years, and it's been so cool, is God trains those of us who are homeschool moms have just amazing privileges. We are learning every single day alongside of our children. And so I joke all the time that the homeschool mom on the block should be the coolest, most well-spoken person there is, because we can talk about literature and science and mathematics and history and all of these cool things that we're learning right alongside of them. But it's been astonishing and so exciting to see how many times now you look at those of us who are speaking or talking or writing or whatever, and we are now able to take all of those little things that God was teaching us along the way and open our hands and put them back out for His glory. And that's when He starts bringing it all together. And so I encourage you to enjoy the cool stuff you're learning now, and then you get to even have the anticipation of what is God going to do with this in the days ahead. And nobody knows except for God, but His plan is always perfect.
And he will do something throughout. There's never going to be a season of where we don't do anything.
Yeah.
I think that our Western culture of retirement, where you retire to just, I don't know, sit on a rocking chair on the front porch and do nothing. I don't think that that's. I mean, we have work that God has given us, and work is good. Work was in the garden before the
Yep.
fall. It
Yep.
is good work, and so even if, and I'm not saying even if as belittling this, if your work assignment at the end of your days is to be praying for others. If your work
Mm-hmm.
assignment is to be quoting scripture to others, if your work assignment is just to be there to allow others to serve you because you cannot do anything else,
Yep.
that's a blessing to them. And so there will always be an assignment. I just love how you said, rather than, creating the friction and wedging something in to force it, which, by the way, both of those are science terms. Very good,
I threw
Leslie.
that in just for you.
That's very good. But it's true. We force it, and I love how you said that because it creates friction. And
Mm-hmm.
if we just open our hands up and say, "Lord, here's where I am. What are you doing?" I know as homeschool moms, wow, so homeschool parents are some of the smartest people I know
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
we get to learn it again with our children, and the blessing of that. My kids, this is in an elementary school. My kids, we'd be reading something, and I'd be like, "This is amazing! I never learned that," or
I
"Wow, this is
know.
pretty cool." My kids are like, "Mom, did you even go to school?"
Exactly.
Like, I
I
did,
didn't
but
understand the significance at the time. It's so much
that's
cooler
right.
now.
That's right. And so it is. A good example is, I had a very poor grammar education, writing education. The middle school years are the time when you learn a majority of that, that composition skills. And my family moved 4 separate times during
Mm.
my middle school year. So I went to 4 different middle schools and missed a lot of the grammar and writing
Yeah.
education. So I didn't have very good writing education or understanding of composition, and had to learn it along with my children all 4 times. Each child went through school so 4 different times, not knowing that God would have me write, that God would have me as an
Mm.
author writing. And so it was a skill that I lacked, a skill I didn't know I needed, but God knew. And so it's just so neat that we never stop learning. We
Yeah.
never stop having an assignment or something productive. You are here on this earth. God has placed you where you are for his good purposes and to do amazing things.
Mm.
And again, those amazing things aren't necessarily brain surgery, that there's so many amazing things that we can do, loving and serving our family, pouring into our children's lives, helping, coming alongside when they have kids. You're going to be a grandparent soon. I'm
Ah,
so excited for
yay.
you. And the grandparenting season is so sweet to be able to have the time to sit down with your young grandchild and let them wonder about something, and then have the time to say, oh, let's go get that, let's go look at that, let's go for a walk. And that sweet time, that is the best assignment,
Mm,
being with our children, being with our children's children. And so, and again, they will rise up and call you blessed, believe it or not, just like Proverbs 31 says. There is, you aren't going to see it in those years where they're in those training seasons necessarily, but they're going to say, Mom, I really appreciated when you
yeah.
did this or that. Or as they become parents, how did you do this? And so there's so many great things that we're going to see, we look back in our
Mm,
lives that God has done. And so having that perspective of going forward, but also having that perspective of looking backward
yeah.
is really helpful to us when we're in those challenging times, because God's using it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And I wanted to kind of go back just a little bit and talk about kind of the path that God has led you, because I think that this is really interesting. You were a marine biologist, so you went to college, you are very well educated in science, in education. Um, you then took those skills when your kids were a little bit older and you started having science classes within your home, ministering to others, just doing the next thing, taking the next step while opening that next door that God had prepared for you. And then at some point along the line, and I want you to tell us about this, God clearly called you, gave you the opportunity to write science curriculum. How did that come about? Was that something that you sought out? Was that something that the Lord really just kind of brought into your path and you were able to make a decision on it? How did that happen?
Yeah, it really didn't happen as something I sought out to do. I thought I never even had the thought that I could be.
Hmm.
Not that I was against doing something like that, but so yeah, just looking back, working at Walt Disney World, before I worked as a marine biologist, I was in college in the Orlando area and worked as in their operations department on one of the rides. So I was like saying, watch your step, watch your step. I had to corral people. I learned how to speak in front of a lot of people and not
Mm.
be afraid, because we had to corral people through the little, cues, and get them in, in places, and announcing things. And I could say two to a seat in 6 different languages. Very helpful in life. But those things helped to build that skill in me, the
Yeah.
ability to just stand up in front of people and say, you're people, I'm people. We're just talking. We're just
Yep.
having fun here. And then again, content, building content, of studying for working there. As a mother, I was learning character, which again was the best thing. I was building relationship, and then teaching other kids in co-op really helped me to expand exposure to the various learning styles. Now I have 4
Mm.
children. All 4 of them have different learning styles. So that already got me started. Okay, how else can I explain this? How else can I come at this angle of what we need to learn? But having other kids with it expanded that exposure. And so I had all these skills in my toolbox I didn't even know I had. I was buying a curriculum from Apologia for my kids. I loved it at the time. I was at a homeschool convention, which again, TTDs are amazing. And I was talking with the publisher about, the next year I wanted to get, and getting ready to purchase it. And we just started talking more, and he found out I was a marine biologist. When I told
Mm.
him I taught co-ops, oh, what is your background? And so I told him, and he said, we're looking for someone to write a marine biology textbook. And so I'm like, I'm just a mom. I don't know how to do this. And um, walking through and having further conversations, we put some stuff together. I knew how the curriculum worked. I knew the way I wanted to teach it. And so that's kind of, I said, well, let's just try. I'll write a chapter about something I love in marine biology, and we'll see how it goes. And so we just did that. And next thing you know, it just kind of worked out. I written a second curriculum, the
Mm.
general science for Apologia. And then teaching the courses, I love making it come alive. I love giving kids an opportunity to learn something maybe a different way, or remembering something in a unique way. And so I started videoing teaching, but I'm like, they don't want to just sit and see me staring at a camera like this. Kids want to see real stuff. And so we make animations. And so I do this so that they can see DNA unfurling, and I had to learn how to do that. And my husband loves videography, and so he's like, well, let's go something. Let's get a GoPro. Let's go get something on film.
It's
And
so
so
fun.
it's just really, it was incremental, but each step was something that helped me learn more. I even, after our kids graduated, I felt like I wanted more understanding of learning styles, learning skills, educational things. And so I went back to school and got
Mm.
a master's in education, because again, I wanted to know. Oh, and one of the things it I learned from that experience was homeschooling is the best educational format that is out there. And
Yeah.
that's what schools try to do, is tailor each child's education to their specific, unique learning style. And
Mhm.
it's difficult to do when you
Oh,
have
yeah, for
4 kids
sure.
at home, let alone 25 children. And so really it reaffirmed to me, from an academic standpoint, from an educational standpoint, this is the best
Mhm.
educational method. But it also gave me some insights and some ways to explain to others how to approach education challenges and things like that. So again, every step it was amazing to see how God used those things. But it wasn't like me saying, I wanted, the technology wasn't even available when I started out doing this. I couldn't say, I want to be a videographer and film here and go here. It wasn't
Yeah.
available.
Yeah.
Computers were just, were giant. And so anyway, yeah, it's really cool to see God's um, plan A. Let's just call
Hmm.
it God's plan A for my
Yeah.
life, even though to me it looked very circuitous going around.
Right, right. Well, and even as you were telling your story and you laid it out very step by step, this happened, this happened, this happened. But my gut is that in between the steps, there were a lot of times probably when you doubted the path that you were on, or there would come something, whether it be financial or physical or something where the detours that you wanted to take to go deal with that, like, could have derailed everything. And God really grows your trust through those things. How did you see God leading you, even, or keeping you on the path, even when you were very tempted to wander off?
It really boils down to faithfulness where we were at the
Mm.
time, and not being able to see maybe just the next step in front of us. We've gone through financial challenges over the years. We've gone through illnesses, caring for sick parents. There were years, there would be like a whole year. Oh, that whole year was spent doing
Right.
this, which to me felt like stagnancy. But to
Hmm.
be able to love and serve a dying parent, or to be able to learn how to feed 3 boys and a girl, who the boys being teenage bottomless pits, on a tight budget,
Yeah.
doing things from scratch rather than buying convenience because the finances weren't there, trusting and appreciating the service and the
Mm.
care that those in our homeschool community and our church community rallied around us during challenges and things like that. So it was harder. It was not easy to see what was next. Let me just say
Yeah.
that we were where we were, and I could see behind me, but even then I couldn't see what God, what did you do
Right.
with that? It looked like we
Right.
did nothing. Or so it takes seasons to be able to look back to seasons, and
Hmm.
not all seasons are going to be what we would consider successful. I'm telling you all this amazing, oh, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. It sounds so great. There are moments in my days, in my life, where I'm like, yeah, maybe this is just not the direction God
Yeah.
wants, or maybe
Yeah.
this is not. And so, death of a vision is what I've heard people say. You have this vision for what you want, and it just doesn't happen. Well, because we can't make something happen, and
Yeah.
we don't necessarily know what God's going to do with those things. And if you see that as, well, that was a failed attempt, it's not necessarily failed, because you learn things through it,
Mm.
whether it's character. And a lot of times it's character, because this, I know you do. And homeschool moms, we see this. God's working in our lives through this experience of being a mom, of
Mm.
being a homeschool mom, of raising our children. He's raising us. I mean, it's important for us to see that he's working in us, and that honing and polishing can be painful,
Yeah.
and we can't see what the final thing is going to be, and it could just be more of this, and that's okay, because whatever this is that we're experiencing, if it's hard, if it's challenging, can be a story for others to encourage them,
Yeah.
can be an opportunity for others, again, to come alongside us and walk with us. That is the blessing of the body of believers. I hear people say, it doesn't take a village to raise a kid. It's really the parent's job. Yes, I agree with that. But it might take a village to raise a homeschool mom.
Yeah.
You know, we
Touche.
need each other, right? We
We
need each
do.
other. We need that encouragement and support. That's what I love what TTD does with their 365 community, to be able to be there year round for each
Yeah.
other, to be a place for moms to just come and say, I'm empty. I have nothing left. I need someone to just fill me up. Or how can I encourage somebody else?
Mm,
Or share my story. It's so important. We need that
yeah.
community of believers to come alongside us and encourage one another and learn and serve each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So many times I think God uses those seasons to teach us to be still, to cease striving and know that He is God. Because our first instinct, at least mine, I'll tell on myself, I think it's the same for a lot of women, is to strive. We want to fix it. We want to do our way out of this thing. But so
Yeah.
often God puts us in a situation where we are the only recourse is be still and know that I am God. Watch Him part the waters, watch Him make the way. And what He does in our lives through that is strengthen our faith, and that just overflows. Discipleship is leveraging what God has taught you on behalf of another person. In your children's lives, they are going to be able to glean from all of these things that God is teaching you through each of these seasons, highs, lows, and in betweens, as you learn to be still and know that He is God. He is on the throne, and He has a perfect plan for you if you'll just trust Him.
Oh, that's so good. That is so good. That rest, we always feel like we need to do. We
Yeah.
need to be doing something. And again, I think our culture makes us it puts pressure on us to
Mm.
do that. We feel like we have to make excuses for not doing X, Y, or Z. I'll confess right now, I do not make sourdough bread from scratch. I would love to. I would love if somebody in my house would do that. I don't have the time. I
Yep.
just don't. It's the pressure though. It's all over Pinterest. I mean,
Absolutely. And
that's
they're
the new thing.
beautiful.
Yes. Oh, and it's good for you. I
I know.
totally get it. Or, whatever the next thing is. Oh, essential oils or what's the next thing? There's so many great things out there. We cannot do it
Yep.
all.
Yep.
We have to see what is this for me for today, but we feel that pressure of having to do all of it so that our kids have the best of whatever, or we feel like we've done God right. God knows what
Hmm.
he's doing,
Right.
and it's not on us. And so, we're approaching the holiday season right now. This is being recorded, and so that is overwhelming for a lot of people. We want to have these
Yep.
Pinterest perfect houses, and the cookie baking and the gingerbread making and the whole everything. And all of those things are good on their own, but if it causes stress, if it keeps you from being still, like you were
Yeah.
saying, from resting, then
Yep.
it's only going to cause strife. Our kids are watching us.
Yes.
They aren't going to remember that mom had the perfectly clean house with the matching candle scents and the pillows that had, the Christmas pillows or whatever. They're going to remember the things that you did, the times you were together,
Mm.
or when we were going through a challenging time and we just prayed. And
Yeah.
then God did this or that. They'll remember that. And that's
Absolutely.
amazing. Yeah.
Absolutely. It is. And it makes it all so worthwhile as you look back, or as one of them will come to you and just bring something up that to you thought you were just passing by. Like so often what my kids will key on now that they're adults are small things in the moment, or at least I would have thought that they were small things. But those
Yeah.
small minute by minute, hour by hour things that you're doing. We call them the in between times. Nothing exceptional. It's those in between moments. Our kids are learning and growing, and that is where we are intentionally teaching them diligently, passing on our faith, and giving them a firm foundation for their own faith that sticks and will hold them, for the rest of their life, and they'll pass it on to their family. So it's a generational thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, go ahead.
I agree, but it's the content of our lives. I like to call it, that's the margin times.
Mm-hmm.
We have content, which is great, but the margins are where a lot of things happen.
Yep.
And so if we don't allow for margin, then we're not allowing for those sweet things to happen,
Yeah.
the little things that our kids will cling to, like you said. And that's one of the beauties of homeschooling too. We have more time.
Yeah.
That's a gift. I mean, yes, our time is filled, but our time is filled doing what? Being with our children,
Yep. Amen.
raising them, cooking, cleaning, spelling tests, algebra, all of those, that's time with our kids.
Yeah.
I just think we have to be reminded of that so that we have that margin in our days
Mm,
to be able to see what God's going to do in those spaces,
yeah.
because he'll do something really
Absolutely.
cool.
Amen. Amen. Now, Sherri, you have a new project coming out that I'm really excited about. You wrote it with a good friend of ours, Trisha Goyer. Tell us a little bit about that before we run out of time.
Okay, yeah. So Trisha Goyer and I, we were both homeschool speakers, and we connected with each other. She is an author. She loves to write novels and stories. She's a storyteller. Of course, I love apologetics and science and helping kids see God's amazing creation. So we took those things and combined them together in a book that's coming out with Tyndale Press. And it's called Wonders of the Ocean Realm. And we
Hmm.
follow 5 ocean animals, unique ones, not like your common animals that you see in the ocean, very unique animals. We follow their lives, and there's 5 small stories in there. It's written for ages 8 to 12, but I think that younger and older would enjoy it as well. When you follow these animals through their lives and the challenges that they experience, and you learn about their unique body design and how they're wired by God to live where they live exactly, and some fascinating things, how they can create their bodies to change. We don't we have a mimic octopus, and he named Dexter, and he's mimic octopuses do more than just change their color and texture of their bodies. They actually change their shape and behavior to look like other animals.
That's so
And so
cool.
depending on whether they're hunting or whether they're hiding from a predator, they can be a sea snake, they can be a flounder, they can be a lionfish. They literally can
Mm,
change to multiple shapes. How do they know how to do this? These guys, uh, classification wise, are not much different than a clam, and yet
wow.
they're able to do something amazing. And so we follow these animals through their lives, and you learn a lot of things, but we also attach something for kids to learn from a character standpoint,
Mm,
whether it's communicating with the Lord, whether it's seeing how God has created them uniquely special. So there's some questions and answers at the end of each of the 5 short stories. It's just a really fun, beautifully illustrated. We got a beautiful illustrator, and so we're super excited. It's coming out January 7th.
awesome. Awesome. Well, right around the corner.
Yes.
Sherri, thank you so much for joining us. Before you go, tell everybody where they can find you. I assume that this book will be available everywhere, but tell us where they can get all of these things from you directly.
Sure, sherryseligson.com. But you can order the book. You can pre-order it now, even on Amazon, Tyndale.com, barnesandnoble.com. If you send me through my social media or on my website, you can find me on social media, Facebook and Instagram, Sherri Seligson, author. Send me a picture that you've ordered the book. I will send anyone a free activity booklet that goes with it. We
Ooh,
have a
fun.
companion activity book that you can download, and it's got recipes and activities and crafts that go with each of the animals. And so that's a pre-order bonus that we'd love to offer as well.
Oh, so fun. Well, we'll make sure that we give all of those links to make sure everyone can pre order their book. And then
Yeah.
if you're listening to this after January 7th, make sure that you go pick up your copy of Wonders of the Ocean Realm. It's going to be a really fun, insightful, exciting resource that you're going to want to introduce to your family. So, Sherri, thank you so much for joining us today. It has, as always, been a lot of fun to talk to you.
Thank you, Leslie. It's been such a fun time talking with you.
Well, you're welcome. And to everyone else, I hope that you have really enjoyed this time. I hope it's been an encouragement and just a good reminder that God has a good plan for your life, no matter where you are on your journey right now. Hope continually. Have that constant expectation that God is working, that God is doing something good, and that He can even take the seasons of your life that feel dry or barren or boring and use them for His glory in the days to come. So keep the faith, keep moving forward, do the next thing, and serve joyously right where God has planted you. You will never look back with regret if you do. I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I look forward to talking to you again real soon.